Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of In the Workshop. Today we're going to talk about vehicle inspections. You know, vehicle inspections, and you've heard me say this an awful lot, is almost something that is morally and ethically the responsibility of a tech. You know, we want to make sure that our customers know what's wrong with their cars to protect them, to make sure that they're operating a vehicle that's safe, to let them know if there's going to be problem areas that are going to cost them money down the road. You know, it's a win-win-win, really. The consumer gets to find out what's wrong with their car to keep it running in its best condition. The tech, of course, hey, it's more work. You know, it adds to your book time and gets you a little more money in your pocket. And certainly it's to the shop's benefit. The problem is, though, managing the system to make sure it works the way it needs to. And today we're going to talk to a shop owner out in California that's found a way to make it work right and be able to track it a lot more easily. Scott Osborn, how you doing?
Good morning, Pete. I'm doing well.
Now, Scott, you own a shop out in Redondo, California, correct?
Redondo Beach, right? It's just south of Los Angeles.
Well, you know, you guys out on the left coast, I'm not quite sure what the terminology there is, so you'll have to keep me straight. Let's talk about that. Tell us about, you know, your shop, how long you've been in business, that type of thing.
I've had a shop in Redondo Beach for about 25 years now. We started out with gas stations. We've had 4 gas stations kind of spread all over California, and it was about, I want to say, 12 years ago that we got out of the gasoline business. Got rid of all 4 of those shops and just concentrated on the one shop that we have now in Redondo Beach.
And like you just heard me tell everybody, you know, you have your techs do vehicle inspections on the customers' cars, like nearly every shop owner does. I mean, again, it's a good way to add revenue to the shop, but you got to make sure it's managed properly, don't you?
Yeah, one of the things that I ran across, I've done quite a bit of management training with ATI, Elite, RL O'Connor, quite a few of them, and one of the things that they always preached was to do a good inspection. And I never quite understood what a good inspection was, other than me going out into the service bays and redoing the inspection and testing the technician that way. And you can't do that from a distance, and before you know it, the techs fall back into some bad habits of skimming over things that they don't like to do and possibly overselling things that they do like to do.
Yeah, sure. So you really have a lot of different facets. I mean, every shop I've ever worked in, they were paper forms. You know, they were on the back of the work order maybe. So I know one of the biggest frustrations I had as a tech, that if I did do a thorough professional inspection, you know, was knowing that my service writer was going to sell at least some of it, right? But tracking that with a paper copy, I know another common mistake that we talked about before is having that form attached to a customer's car. They come back 3 months, 6 months down the later, and the results aren't in sync with what they had the first time around. A lot of issues, in other words, with that paper copy. But you developed a way to change that, right? What did you do to change that for your shop?
Well, what I did, I started quite a while, I want to say about 3 years ago. I was frustrated with the fact that customers would come in, and we call that brake growth. When they'd come in 3 months ago and they had 50% on their brakes, one tech checked it out, they come in today and all of a sudden they've got 60% left on their brakes, and you know, the customer looks at you and says, "What, did you water my brakes?" And the reality of it is the guys were doing just a quick look at it, and there was no consistency. We didn't have access to that last inspection sheet. Even if we took a carbon copy of it or made 2 copies of it, it was attached to a repair order and it was long gone in storage by 3 months. So about 3 years ago, I started doing my inspections. I built a quick little web page with a database back end, and it saved that information. So that, and the whole reason was so that number one, that I could go back and look at the previous one easily, and then I found that the customers really liked that printed sheet too. Coming from the computer, it told them what was wrong with their car this time, and it kind of led right into the idea that you know, gee, don't you guys just plug into my car and the computer tells me what's wrong with my car? So there was a belief issue there too. So that was about 3 years ago, and after looking at the data one day, I just downloaded all the data, started playing with it in a spreadsheet, and I started to see something out of it as I'm just playing with graphs and numbers and percents, I started to actually see that the mechanics had habits. And you could tell that one guy always said the brakes were at 30%, whether they were brand new or what. That's just his numbers. One guy never recommended a set of shocks. Another guy might have recommended a brake fluid exchange 80% of the time. So there were these differences that just kept going back and forth. And that's when I noticed that I really had something there with that data.
Yeah, so you had that advantage. You were able to check what the technicians were doing, and as you pointed out, some guys just pencil whip the form to get it out of the way. So you're able to track that. You're also able to track the selling efficiency, right, of your counter people. Isn't that a part of that program?
That's part of the program too. Yeah, it's kind of evolved into that now. We're able to dig down into the data through some reporting that we've developed that allows you to not only see the mechanics' habits of what they like and dislike to check, but you can also look at the dollar value of your mechanics' habits and see which technician's average repair order is higher or lower. So I may have one technician that his average find on a car is about $1,000. I may have another mechanic and his average find is about $400. So you get a value on your technicians at that point. And then as you look at this report, you can also see that if you've got multiple service advisors, that service advisor A may be selling 80% of technician one's work and only 20% of another tech. So you start to look at the habits of your advisors as well, and preferential treatment, which could come from different causes. But
yeah, and all of these, of course, are just, basic human nature, basic patterns that I'm sure every shop faces as a challenge. Give us a little more detail. Tell us exactly, how shop owners who are watching, may find out more about, what you're doing and how they can do the same thing in their own shop.
Well, the program that I've developed after showing it to several people, several of the guys that are in our Elite Pro Service group, they just wanted this software. They wanted it so bad, they were ready to go out and build it, or they wanted me to copy my software for them, and I decided to create a secondary company for it, and that's called Repair Shop Solutions. And it is now an online inspection program, completely customizable for each individual shop. I didn't want to put much hard code into it because I know that, like, some of the guys on the East Coast are going to be finding rust and looking for that sort of thing, while us on the left side over here rarely see any rusted brake lines. So these averages and normals are going to be different for every part of the country. So a shop owner goes in, he signs up, he adds his employees to the mix, and he creates his own inspection or takes one of ours and is able to manipulate it. If you break down an average car inspection, it's made up of 4 points, or it should be. You've got categories like under hood, under car, cooling system. Under each category, you've got tasks. If you're in the under hood category, you might have tasks such as belts and hoses, cooling system. If you're under car, you might be looking at the brakes. And each one of those tasks is going to have a finding. So if I'm looking at coolant hoses, I may have a finding that says the hoses are old and weak, they're soft, they're leaking, whatever it is. And that's about as far as the paper inspection takes it. Where the paper inspection misses it is there's rarely a recommendation. And that's where you ask for the sale. So in our program now, you've got a category, under hood. You've got a task, checking the hoses. You've got a finding, which is the hoses are leaking. And let's throw out the recommendation. You need new hoses. So now you've got a computer printed out sheet that says you need new hoses. And that system is now available to shop owners all the way from a one-man shop up to, 10 advisors and 50 technicians.
So this is hosted online.
It's cloud-based. There's no software to download. It is not dependent on your management system. Whether you're using RO Writer, Mitchell, Pace, whatever you've got access to this. And it's pretty simple. We can upload your customer data to it. so that all you have to do is drop in the VIN number of an existing customer. It'll pre-populate the inspection with year, make, model, the customer's name, email address. Another great part about the program is the PDF, is the inspection that it generates is a PDF. So you can save that to your hard drive. You can email it to the customer. You can bring it up later. It's real easy to use, very friendly.
And I'm thinking too that, I mean, if it's a cloud-based system, you know, the tech in the back can put in the information in his workstation in the back. And I'm thinking of, you know, multiple tech, multiple service writer operations here, and the service writer up at the front counter can easily pull that same information up on his workstation because it's cloud-based, and even so far as to be able to stand car side with a tablet or something to input the information as the customer's in the service bay, to review past recommendations, you know, as the customer is arriving for, you know, a new service appointment. I mean, it sounds like there's the possibilities are pretty much limited only by the imagination of the shop owner.
Right. We've got it is tablet friendly. There's a tablet version there. If the technician grabs his Kindle Fire, which, you know, I can find them now down to $100 a piece. So if they drop on the floor and explode, you don't have to mortgage the house to get a new one. They're very friendly that way. And the technician just simply with his fingers can fill out the form. And anytime you've got a finding, if you check something off that needs service, it gives you a drop down of choices. So like, let's say you found that hose was cracked, you hit that the hose needed service, and it actually gives you a drop down of options. And then recommendations based on those options.
Right, and I think you mentioned earlier, some of those options can be customizable by the shop to adjust for where they are in the country. You know,
exactly.
Yeah. Yes. So
everything on there is customizable, from your categories, your tasks, your findings, your recommendations, the order that they're in. However you want it, it'll work.
Yeah. And is there a way that, you know, anyone who's watching, if they wanted to take this for a test drive, is there a way they can do that?
Sure. My phone number is on the site. If they're looking for a 30-day trial, they can get a hold of me. They can email me or call me, and I'll give them a coupon code good for a 30-day free trial. That's not a problem.
Yeah, well, that sounds like, you know, guys, I mean, that sounds like if you're facing the same situation that Scott did in his shop of being managing, you know, the vehicle inspections. I mean, as a shop owner, I would have to think, number one, you want to make sure your techs are doing a thorough job on each car, number one. Number two, you want to make sure that they're not being biased one way or the other or recommending service that's not needed to maintain your own reputation. On the tech side, doing that for so long, you know, I used to get upset that I would do a thorough inspection and get very little, you know, sales out of it. So there's a way to track your service writers to make sure that, you know, they're meeting their requirements, their goals for closing business. And again, you're doing a very thorough service for the consumer, and really that's the bottom line. They depend on us to tell them what's wrong with their car, much as we go to a doctor and depend on them to tell us what's wrong with their body. You know, you have a lot of responsibility in the palm of your hand when you service, you know, a person's car. This is one way that Scott's developed to help you do an even more thorough job of it. Hey Scott, thanks for taking the time to explain all this to us. We'll hope that a lot of the guys who are watching will stop by Repair Shop Solutions and try out what you got.